Okay, so I think hopefully most people are in now. So I think I'm going to go ahead. So this session is all about AI in Power BI. So my name's Helen Gore. I am a freelance business intelligence and data consultant, and I live in Bath and have done for the last 11 years, I think it is now. So just a little bit about my background. So I've been doing BI, which is business intelligence, and data for 20 years, so my sort of whole career. And then Power BI was launched in 2015, so I've been using that since then. I primarily have a Microsoft focus, so I don't work for Microsoft, I don't work for Power BI, I'm not trying to sell anything to you, but lots of small, medium-sized businesses are using sort of Microsoft and Office 365 and that whole arena. So I do focus on that in particular. So around their cloud offerings and databases and the Dynamics ERP and CRM systems. So I sort of help local SMEs with data strategy. Maybe if they're not big enough to have their own sort of data leadership, then I can come in and sort of have a partnership there where I provide that service. I'm often asked to sort of look at current data architecture within an organisation or help with sort of aligning several different data sources together, or sort of improve management reporting, or look at data warehousing. So that's all my background. But primarily what I found is that a lot of people are using Power BI or are starting to come across it. It's really becoming quite popular now. So it's kind of the kind of skill that actually people are starting to need if you're sort of going for a new job or something like that. So I thought it'd be useful today to just give you an overview of Power BI. So if we think about what Power BI is, then it's sort of best known as a data visualization tool. So you're probably familiar with this sort of charting. So basically, in Excel, the charting isn't brilliant. There's some obviously capability in PowerPoint, but Microsoft realized that there was a sort of bit missing from their offering where they didn't really have this sort of visualization area. So they started off by developing this tool. It's now grown into a huge ecosystem with lots of different types of things that you can do, often powered by the cloud in the background. But today we're just going to really look at that first data visualization piece. So it comes in lots of different sort of formats and different licensing, but we'll be looking at the sort of the basic ones today. So Power BI Desktop is a program that you download. So it sits on your machine a bit like Excel does, but it's completely free, whereas Excel you have to pay as part of your Office subscription. And that's where you sort of build and edit the reports. And then when you want to publish the report, if you want to publish it just privately within your organisation, then you do need to start paying at that point. So it is possible to publish if you've got public data that anybody, it wouldn't matter if anybody saw it. So today I'll show you sort of a published report, and I've not paid anything at all. That's all just, you can do that for free. But if you do actually want it to sort of be private within your organisation, that's at the point where you need to start paying. So that's £7.50 per user per month. Now I've got a client who they need sort of everyone in the organisation to see a dashboard very specifically for 1 month of the year when they're working towards a specific deadline, but the rest of the year nobody was using it, so they turn it off. Well, some of the users are using it, but not like the same volume. So they only pay sort of really for that 1 month, and then the rest of the year they don't pay anything. So it's quite flexible on the pricing. So within this presentation, because the sort of the theme of the festival this year is all about sort of the skills and getting new skills, so I am actually going to sort of do a demo on how to get started with Power BI as well. So there may be, for some people, it might be that you've had a go already, and you might be more interested in the sort of the second half when we move on to the more specific AI features. But I will be sort of going right from scratch, just in case people haven't really played with it yet, and to just make sure that everyone's got those skills that they can go away and actually start to play with it themselves if they want to. In terms of asking questions, you should have a Q&A button that will then pop up a little window where you can type in questions. So Also on the call, I've got Sinead, who has kindly volunteered to monitor the questions for me. So I'll sort of be just pushing on through with the demo, but she'll be looking at the questions. And if she sees one and she thinks, actually, that would be appropriate to ask at this particular point, then she will unmute herself and she'll ask me the question. You'll stay muted, but she'll just do that. So if you just type things in to the box, and then if we haven't answered them during the session, at the end of the session, again, we'll just, between the two of us, we'll sort of go through and answer any remaining questions that we can. So before I sort of crack on with the demo, just want to say thank you to all the supporters and partners of the Bath Digital Festival who've made it possible this year. So thank you very much to them. Okay, so the first thing we need to think about doing is actually sort of getting hold of Power BI Desktop on our machine. I think it was on my slide there, but I forgot to mention that at the moment the desktop part is only available on Windows. It's not available for Macs, I'm afraid. So if you decide that now that means this session might not be for you, then I completely understand. That's fine. You can use Power BI Desktop in different ways, but in terms of, you can use Power BI in different ways in terms of like using it through a browser or something. But in terms of the very specific desktop part that I'm showing today, that's Windows only. So if you just type into Google Power BI Desktop download, and then it should come up straight away with a link to the Power BI page. In here, there are lots of different sort of flavors of Power BI, and the one that you're looking for is this Microsoft Power BI Desktop. There are two options. If you click on the download, that takes you to the Microsoft Store, which I think you have to sort of be signed in with a Microsoft user. Or if you click on the advanced download options, you can actually just sort of get straight through to the download page. So I usually prefer to do it this way because you don't have to go through the sort of the whole store environment. And you can just click on the one that you want. Most machines these days are x64 setup, so you can just click on that and then you download and install it like you would with something like Excel. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through the data that we're going to look at today. So this is sort of a fictional broadband supplier company. It's just some sample data that I found on the web. It doesn't relate to any sort of client data or anything like that. It's purely a completely random set of data that I found. I'm happy to sort of share this data at the end of the session if anybody wants to have a go at redoing the kind of things that I've done in today's session. We'll go through that at the end. So in this data, we've got a customer ID, and then what sort of broadband type they've purchased, whether that's DSL or fibre optic, whether they also purchased a phone line package or a TV package or a movie package, whether they've needed to use the help desk for any reason, whether they signed up to paperless billing, what age, whether they're under or over 65, what sales region they're in, what contract type, 1 year, 2 years, or on a month-to-month contract, the start date of that contract, the number of months they've been a customer for, how much they've paid during over that period, and whether they're actually still a current customer or not. So some of the older customers may have left. Okay, so that's the main sort of data set that we're going to use today to show you the things you can do in Power BI. So I'll just close Excel. Okay, so here is Power BI, as Power BI Desktop that I've installed. So as you can see, it's got the same sort of menu type thing that you would get in Excel, but obviously the other pieces look a little bit different. So the first thing I'm going to do is say, actually, I need to get some data to pull in here. So you can click on here, and there are lots of different sources you can choose from, or there's just a button here. If it's Excel, you can go straight to an Excel source. So I'll do that at the moment. So I'm going to pick that broadband contracts file that I just showed you, and we'll let that load up. Hopefully that shall come up in a second. So what it's going to do now is it's actually going to import that data into this file. So there was one sheet on there called contracts. Check it's the right data, all looks good. So I'm going to load that in. So that's loading the data into this file. So if you were now to email this file to somebody else, that data goes with it. So just the same as with Excel, once you put some data in, if you then email it or put it on a file share, that data stays within the file itself. So whilst that's loading, just to say that there are, I think it's 139 different data sources available at the moment. So they can range from, so you can have like a direct connector through to something like Google Analytics, where you put in sort of your Google Analytics log on, and you can actually just then start to analyze that data in here. And the same with Salesforce, SurveyMonkey, so lots of different things. And then obviously you can connect to all sorts of different types of databases, not just Microsoft ones, but the other ones as well. Okay, so that what we've done here is just an Excel file, so we've loaded that up, and now you can see all the different columns here available on the right hand side. So we can start building our first sort of report here. So what you do is you click on the visualization that you want. So if I do sort of column chart here, and then you say what you want in it. So it gives you sort of handy hints of what things you might want to add in. If you actually just tick on the fields, it usually has a good go at putting them in the right place anyway. So I'm going to start by, I'll just look at contract type, and I'm going to look at the total payments that have been made. Okay, so here's our first chart. So we can see that they've had more payments made through 2-year contracts than they have through the others. So now let's bring in another visual. So let's go for the standard pie chart. Love them or hate them. It's a good thing to just have just to show. So broadband type. This time I'm going to look at broadband type again by the total payments that have been made. Now these charts now interact with each other. So if I say I just want to look at the DSL, then it immediately interacts with this chart here. There are 2 different ways that they can interact, and actually this is the one thing that's sort of hidden away in Power BI that I wish the setting was slightly different. But if you come across the top here, there's a format menu, edit interactions, and this is where it then pops up some little extras here, and you can say whether you want the mode to be a highlight mode or a filter mode. And if you change the filter, it actually changes sort of the whole chart itself, which usually, in my experience, I find the filter experience is better. It's just a pain because you keep having to change it everywhere. So now if we click between them, you can see the whole thing changes and the pie chart will change as well. Okay, so now let's add on a slicer. So a slicer is a bit like a filter. So if we say, have they used the help desk? So this gives you just, options here. So obviously if you had several options, you can go through and you can tick which one. You can also put these in a hierarchy, so you can sort of go down through the hierarchy. So it's a bit like in Excel where you drop down on a filter and you can say which ones you want to choose. So again, if we highlight this, obviously these will then start to interact with each other. Okay, so now let's bring on, still got something highlighted here, a line chart. So that's this one here. So I'll just pull this across. Now, line charts are great for doing trends over time. So I'm going to pull in the contract start date to be on the axis. And then I'm going to add the customer to the values. Now, if you remember, customer itself was just a sort of a random string of numbers and letters. So it knows that it can't really add that up. So what it does is it recognizes that actually, I think what you're probably trying to do here is actually count your distinct number of customers. So it's already sort of converted that to a count for you. So here we can see our customers going across over time. And when you pull in a date, it recognizes this date field. It actually breaks it down automatically to these options of that year, quarter, month and day. So you can start to drill down and up through your charts accordingly. Also, when you're on a chart, you can change it to any other type of chart. So if I should say, actually, I didn't really want a line chart here, you can just change it to a bar chart. and back to a line chart. So it's quite easy to sort of play around. On here, I'm interested in sort of the total customers, but I'd like to see that split out by something else. So that's where you use this legend field. So say we put in contract type into the legend, then you can start to see actually the 2-year contracts are really sort of tailing off, and the months seem to be really popular at the moment. Again, this chart now sort of still interacts with all the others. I'm just going to change that to a bar chart again, just because it's kind of neat to then show when you drill down. So if we want to drill down from years to quarters, we just click on this button here and it immediately takes us to quarters. You can then go down to months, or let's see, at this point it's probably too much data to show, but you can pretty much show it however you want to. Okay, I'll pop that back to a line chart. Actually, it's taking up a bit too much room, so I'll push it over a little bit. Okay, so the last one I'm going to put on here is a table, because whilst it's all very nice having these fancy charts, usually people still want to see, but what are the actual figures that we're talking about? So in my table, I'm going to put the customer ID, so we can see who the customers are. Sorry, I'm just going to check my notes. I'm going to put the total payments and then the sales region. Okay, so now we've got a table here. So again, when you click on something, the customers here will change. And you can order these fields just by clicking here. So I can say, actually, I want to know which customer has given the most payments, what sales region they belong to. Okay, I'm going to rename this page to be an overview. And now we'll move on to a new page. So one of the things here is that the region, I've got the number of the region, but that doesn't really help me much in terms of knowing what region that is. And so I know that my sales team do have that data. They've got the list of translations between which number actually corresponds to which place. So I'm going to go in and pull another spreadsheet that the sales manager kindly gave to me. Okay, and it's got one sheet in it called regions. So we'll just, and here we can see that there's a field that's got the number key and then the town that relates to and the sales territory that town is in. So we'll just load that data in. So this is going to appear as a new sort of set of fields on the bottom right. Here we go. So here's our regions table. Okay, so we have a relationship here between these two tables. So on the left-hand side, there's 3 sort of different panels. So far, we've just worked in the report panel, but there's also a table panel where you can see sort of more details about the tables themselves. And then there's this relationship panel. So in the relationships, I know that sales region number is supposed to map to the number in here. Now, if in this second table, this had been called sales region number, Power BI would automatically have sort of tried to make that link for me. But because here they were actually named differently, I'm going to manually come in and make that relationship. So you just sort of drag one to the other and it creates that relationship. So now I can go in and actually start to use this data alongside the other data because it's all going to tie in nicely. So we've got some sort of location data now, so we can do a map. So I'm going to bring on a mapping visual. And I'm going to put the town into the location. And it automatically sort of recognizes town names within the mapping software that's going on here. If you needed to, there is sort of latitude and longitude, but if you've got a town or a city or a country name, you can just drop it into the location. It will automatically work that one out. And then we've got these little bubbles where those towns are. So the bubble size here, so I can put, say, the total payments into the bubble size, so we can see actually which areas are generating the most revenue for us. And again, this map will interact with anything else you put on the page. So if we put on, say, a bar chart here. Oh, sorry, just trying to move that around. Here we go. And I'm going to put the territories into the bar chart with, oh, let's do total payment again. Okay, so now obviously these will interact. So if I say I just want to look at the Southwest, it's just going to give us these. So I think you're starting to get the idea now of sort of how you can sort of build reports that are also fairly interactive. So we're going to come and do the first AI visual, which is this Q&A visual here. And that should pop up a little box. Okay, so this is all about sort of asking questions, but in a natural language. So if I put, if I type in show me my top 10 customers by amount. Okay, so it's come away and it's used the AI in the background to try and understand what it is that I'm really asking for here. You'll note that I've asked for amount, but there's no sort of amount. There isn't a column called amount. Equally, there isn't a column called customer. There are a couple that have customer in the name. So it's that's where the sort of AI comes in here, where it's trying to sort of second guess what you really meant by that. I think it's done quite a good job here. So again, if I just edit interactions, so this will filter the way I want it to. We can then say, okay, so who are the top 10 customers in Birmingham, for example? And then you can sort of add other things in here, or when you publish this, you can either say, change this into a visual. So I like the visual it's given me. I'm just going to pin that visual to the page, or you can leave it as an open box that within that report, anybody can sort of type in what they want at any time. And you can do sort of things, say, you can say in May 2009, for example. Okay, so that's the first AI visual. So we'll just call this territories. Right, let's look at another one. So the next one we're going to look at is called the Key Influencers Report. So we'll just pop this on here. So I'm interested in my customers, whether they're a current customer or not. So I want to know what influences the current customer to be yes or no. So let's start with yes to start with. So what's sort of the key things that we can see that, you know, key attributes of the customer that mean that they are sort of sticking around as a customer. So I don't know really which ones are really influencing that. So I'm going to ask it to actually search through lots of different ones. So I'm going to bring in age, what broadband type they're on, what contract type, whether they use the help desk, whether they bought movies, whether they've got papers billing, whether they've bought a phone line, whether they bought TV package, what territory they're in, what town they're in. Okay, so I'm getting a whole load of different things, and it's now using its little light bulb. So what that's doing is running machine learning in the background using logistic regression, and it's going to come back and say, okay, so for a current customer to sort of still be current, the most likely influencing factor here is that they're on a month-to-month contract. And then the next one down is that they have actually not needed to use the help desk for any reason. So we can change that now to say, well, actually, what causes our customers to leave? So again, that little light bulb shows that the AI is working in the background. Okay, so customers are more likely to leave if they were on a 2-year contract and they did have to use the help desk for some reason. So they could be that the help desk, you know, could be helping to turn customers around a bit more. So there's another part to this visual here, which is the top segments. So if I click on here, what it's done here is it's sort of the AI in the background has automatically segmented the customers. So here it said it's found 6 segments. So if we look at segment 1, okay, so segment 1 is customers where their broadband type is DSL, they're on a 2-year contract, and they did have a TV package included. So in this segment, 95% of the customers have left. And that segment is 7.3% of the data. Again, we can go on to the next segment. So here, they're fibre optic, they're on a 2-year contract, and they've chosen the TV package. And again, this one, 91% of customers within this segment had left, which is 6.4% of the data. Again, if we change that to be yes, it will go away and tell us what it's found out about these segments. So this time it decided to put it into 5 segments instead of 6. Again, you can sort of drill into that. So I mean, I think for a completely free tool that's really, I hardly had to do any clicking other than just tick the fields that I was interested to see if they might be influencing or not. I think that's a fairly sort of powerful way the AI is working in the background. So I will just rename that to be segmentation. Okay, now let's look at another one. So we're going to look at the decomposition tree this time. But before we do that, I'm just going to show you how to add sort of a calculated field. So in Excel, if you had, so here we've got the total payments and we've got the number of months that a customer has been a customer for, then we should be able to work out what's the average payment they've made per month. Now in Excel, you would sort of put in a formula in a new field. So we can do a similar thing here. So if we say, actually, we'll have a new measure. So measure is just a sort of technical term for a value. And that pops up a little box across the top. So I'm going to say average monthly payment. So this is going to be the sum of all the total payments to date divided by the sum of the number of months. I just click return. And on the right hand side, we should see a new, so effectively it's like you've built this sort of new formula, a new column in Excel, if you like to think of it in Excel terms. So now we can obviously just use that in any of our charts. So I'm going to use that one in the decomposition tree now. So let's pull this onto the page. Okay, so let's pull in the average monthly payment made. Okay, so we can see that overall that's £82.95. Now, what I don't know is which of these factors sort of influence whether they're paying a higher amount or a lower amount. So again, I can say, okay, I don't know which explain that, but let's pick lots of things and ask it to work that out in the background. So again, I'm just going to pick several of these. What territory in town as well. Okay, so I'm now asking it to go away and say, out of all these, which influences the payment to be the highest or the lowest? So if I click on the little plus here, I can actually just say, actually show me by age what's the average that people are paying. But I want to use the AI, which is the 2 here that have got the little light bulbs next to them. So show me which of these factors has the biggest influence on whether a payment, the average monthly payment, is higher or lower. So here we can see people are paying more for fibre optic. So probably not that surprising in this case. You kind of expect that it might be a premium product. So let's keep going and see what else it finds. Okay, so the next one it's found is that the contract type, people are on average paying more. So obviously this is now within fibre optic category. And people are paying more if they're on a 2-year contract than they are on month to month, which you might expect them that they would be paying less if they're on a longer contract, or maybe just those contracts are older, which is when it was more expensive. Let's do the same again. So out of these 2-year contracts, actually the people in Keighley seem to be paying more than in other places. So I don't know why that would be, but anyway, it sort of gives you the idea of the sort of things that you can do with this visual. So I'll just rename that decomposition. And of course, at any point, you can drag in other filters or charts onto these pages, and they will all interact and filter each other as before. Okay, so the last AI visual that I'm going to show here is one called Analyze. So I'm just going to put on just a normal bar chart here, and I'll put the contract date across the bottom, which will start with the year level, and we'll have the number of customers in the values. Okay, so we can see that the number of new customers each year sort of, went down a bit, and now in 2020, it's really shot up. So I want to know, well, why? Why is there this sudden leap? What's actually causing that? So if you right-click on the year that you're interested in, you can choose to analyze and say, explain the increase. And what that's going to do is again, we get the little light bulb to show that AI is working in the background, and it's going to go off, and it's basically working through everything else in the data to say, okay, what is causing that increase? So this is the kind of thing you could do just by building lots and lots of charts yourself with all the different factors in, but it's a lot easier if you can click one button and it sort of shows it for you. So the first one it's come up with is, so whether they are an existing customer or not. So in that time, we did lose 86 customers, but so the majority of them are because they're new customers. So I think in this data set, there's nothing particularly groundbreaking here, but it sort of gives you the idea of how quickly you can start to generate that view, just so you can start to see which ones might be important. So you might think, oh, actually, yeah, this one, my manager would like this. This is just exactly what they want to see. So at any point, you can just say, yeah, I'll have that one, please, and pop that onto the page. Just click on here to get rid of that. Okay, now you've got a new chart. Now, whenever you put on a chart, particularly if it's one that's auto-generated, but when you're building your own, at any point you can sort of change the formatting. So on this part here, where we were dragging in what sort of fields we wanted to use or columns we wanted, there's a second bit here, which is a paint roller. So if I just click on that, this is where you can go in and you can change what you want to see. So here, for example, on the y-axis, actually, I think a more appropriate title would be, I've got a title one somewhere. Yeah, I think actually I want this to say count of new customers. Okay, so you can at any point change the titles or change the background color. So maybe here, if I can remember where background color is, sorry, in background, can say, oh, actually, I'm going to go with sort of purple background here, make it look really awful. And I might want to change then the sort of text on there to be white instead of black. And so at any point, really almost everything is customizable to the way you want it. And you can actually sort of pull in your own color schemas. So here, whilst it sort of gives you a theme of a set of colors. If you've got a set of company colors, you can upload them. And so then the sort of the automatic colors that it sort of uses by default will be your company colors, but you can go in at any point and change them. Okay, so let's call that one. Actually, we don't need to call that anything. We're probably sort of done on this piece now. So the next thing I just wanted to talk about is just the idea of then publishing this report. So once you have it ready, you can save it, and you can then, for free, you can email it to somebody else. or you can put it on a shared drive and other people can open it and edit it. Or you might not really want people editing at this point. You're quite happy with what you've put together, but you want to share it with other people. So if you click on the publish button, what that does is it makes it available in a browser view. Sorry, let's go back to here. Okay, so the file that I just published is now available for anyone to see. And you can click through the different pages that we made. And then once it's in this view, there are various different things that people can do when they're in this view. So obviously, first of all, you'd want to be quite secure about the way you share it. So you sort of choose who it's going to be shared to. That can be Office 365 groups or individual people, individual email addresses. Generally, once you have an organisation sort of using this in earnest, you'll have an administrator who takes care of making sure that everything's shared with the right people. Also, within a report, you can what they call it row level security. So if you've got different sales territories and you only want to see each sales manager to only see their own territory, then that's possible. So when they log in here with their email address, they only ever get to see the data for their territory. So you can sort out all that sort of thing. And then when you're on these screens, once you're in the web version, you can actually say, export this to PowerPoint or PDF, and that will actually generate a PowerPoint with each of these being different slides. At that point, the interaction has gone. So whilst you're still on in the web portal, when you click on things, the interaction is exactly the same as it would be within the desktop. But once you export it into PowerPoint or a PDF, it just becomes like almost like a flat screenshot of the filters that were chosen at the point when you did that export. The export to analyze in Excel basically generates you a pivot table that you can use in Excel. But also another way to get the data is if you right click on three little dots here, you can export data, and that creates an Excel file. So if you've got a table laid out and you run that export data on a table view, it will actually sort of present you with an Excel spreadsheet that looks exactly like your table. If you do it on a chart, usually the data is quite summarized by the time it's in a chart, so you might not get exactly what you're expecting. Whereas so I would suggest if you want them to be able to sort of people to be able to download data out into a spreadsheet, it's best to sort of lay out a table in the exact sort of format and level of aggregations and things that you're going to want them to download in, because then you've got more control. So at any point you can sort of add a text box onto here that says something like download this set of data here or something. And you can add images and you can sort of make it look however you want to. You would do that in the desktop before you publish. So this export to Excel, I think is quite handy, because you might not want to give them the original sort of raw data that you uploaded, particularly if you've got lots of different data sets that you've combined. It might not even be really possible to give them that in a way that they can easily use. But here, we could have changed this to be the territory or the town once we'd brought in that new data, and then you can then sort of present it exactly how you might want to then let them download that data ready for them to use again in Excel if they want to. Okay, so that was publishing. Let me just check if there was anything else I was going to go through on this. Okay, so I think I've covered most things that I wanted to today. So we've now got a bit of time left that we can go through any questions. If you think of a question later on that we don't cover today, then do feel free to get in touch with me. You can either email me or just contact me on LinkedIn. I'm also very happy, if it would be helpful, just drop me a line and I will send you the sample Excels that I used today, and also just the desktop file that we've just created. So you can then sort of use that as a reference to say, okay, well, actually, which fields were where and how exactly did that work? If that would be of interest to anybody, I'm very happy to send that out. There's nothing confidential, it's just sample data in it. Or if you've got any questions, then you can get in contact. So I don't know, are there any questions?
Helen, you've done a great job. A lot of questions have been answered as you've gone through, so there are no outstanding questions that have come through on the Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good. Great. Okay, so we'll just hang on another minute. If anybody does realise that now's the time they can ask questions, just check if anything else comes through. But if not, then thank you for listening. Do get in touch if you want to, or enjoy the rest of the festival. Hopefully there's so much going on that hopefully if you're not zoomed out, then there are plenty of things that you can be doing to find lots of interesting stuff going on. So enjoy. Thank you very much, everybody.